Welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Kit Evans Ford, and it's great to have you here with us today. Today we have a very special guest, Miss JoselynStone, who is Director of Communication and Development for Bethany for Children and Families. Jocelyn, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Kit.
Absolutely. So today's topic is keeping children safe. So share with us, the viewers, a little bit about how Bethany got started.
Bethany for Children and Families started in 1899 in Rock Island. The founder of the agency was actually a harness maker at the Rock Island Arsenal. His name was Gottlieb German. One night he was coming home from work and he literally found a baby in the bushes. He and his wife Annie took that baby in, and soon they were known in the community as a place that would take children who did not have parents to care for them. After a few years of that type of life, they realized they needed to incorporate it as an orphanage, and they became the Union Mission. They had members of the community who supported them. Seamstresses would come and make clothes. Farmers would drop off vegetables and jars of jam. And eventually they became known as Bethany Home.
Wonderful. It sounds like it really was a home full of love and compassion for children.
It was, and it was, I think, a very Quad Cities type of place where the community rallied to take care of these children who didn't have parents in their lives.
It's absolutely beautiful and so needed.
Yeah, so needed.
In the 1890s, but also today in 2016.
Yeah, the agency has really evolved since that time. We are no longer a residence. We don't provide shelter services, but we do still make sure that we care for those children in the community who are most at risk.
Absolutely. So how many people do you all serve a year?
Well, it varies a little bit, but our numbers last year were over 9,000. Yeah.
Wow, so 9,000 children around the Quad Cities.
Children and families. So maybe some children that we served we saw at a school. Maybe some children that we served, we provided them with dental care, foster care. We have 22 programs and services, so we're able to reach a lot of people in the Quad Cities area.
Okay, so you're able to reach families, children, and oftentimes these children are at risk.
Yes.
So what is considered an at-risk child?
Well, you're right. The phrase at risk can be a little bit confusing. From where we sit, at risk is a child who is in danger of an abuse or neglect situation, is in danger of maybe disrupting from their home. So maybe they have a behavioral disorder that is causing them trouble, that's making them sit outside of the classroom instead of being in the classroom because they're disruptive, or maybe they've become very violent. Those children are at risk of being moved from their home into placement or into juvenile. So we try to identify all those different risk factors that could affect a child and work to mitigate those risks.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome that you work to figure out what's happening, because oftentimes, children are acting out because of something that has happened in their lives.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, so to not just label them and actually work with them, it sounds like you all have lots of services to actually help to get to the root of the problem to help them.
We do. We try very hard to make sure that a child who is going through a trauma is assessed properly and that their needs are met, whether that is through a therapy program or through an intervention, or maybe what needs to happen is we need to go into their home and make sure that their parents understand how to properly nurture. Maybe nutrition is a problem, or maybe the home isn't clean. So we provide services that make sure that parents have resources and that children are growing up in safe homes.
That's beautiful. So you work with the whole family. You really do.
We
literally.
do. The whole family constellation. Yeah.
Yeah, we want to keep families together. Yeah. Now, with your after-school programming that you have, is it for a specific school district?
It mostly serves the Black Hawk Area Special Education District, which is quite large. That encompasses a lot of school districts in the community. The after-school program that we run is specifically for children who experience maybe social problems, who have behavioral disorders. So it's not kind of like after school, everybody plays basketball and we make a treat. It's a really well-structured after-school program where they use what's called aggression replacement therapy. So the students are They are engaged in a constructive activity. They get some homework help, and then they have group where they kind of talk about things that are going on in their lives. They talk about challenges that they have, and then they interact with each other in a way that's socially appropriate. So they learn those behaviors, they kind of modify so that they're behaving appropriately, and then they take that back to school. And what's neat about that program is those kids come from all over the Illinois side of the Quad Cities. So they get to interact with other students who have similar issues, who they might not sit next to on the bus. They might not, have class with those students, but there are other kids like them, and they're here, and they get to interact with them, and they know that they're not alone. It's a really, really cool program.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
For a child to know that they're not alone, and you're giving them skills that'll stay with them for the rest of their lives. That's empowering.
And they have fun doing it. I mean, it's a fun program.
That's awesome. Fun is always good too.
It makes it easier.
Yeah, yeah. Now, what about your dental program? I've heard a little bit about you and read a little bit about your dental program. What's that about?
It's called the Give Kids a Smile mobile dental program. It is so neat. We have a 39-foot RV. Wow. It's enormous. And it's modified to be a mobile dental clinic. It's a dentist office on wheels. It has 3 chairs, just like you would have when you go to the dentist. The children, we take the dentist and the hygienists to the schools. We partner with 139 schools in over 25 school districts. We travel about a 60-mile radius of the Quad Cities, and we work with school nurses to set up dates where we can go visit those schools. So we go to the school. We have already identified children and received permissions to treat them. They come onto the bus. They are very excited to be there usually. They receive an examination, sealants, cleaning. They receive a fluoride treatment, and then we give them a bag with a toothbrush, dental floss, and some information on dental hygiene. Last year we saw about 3,500 children. The need is still really great. If those kids require follow-up care, about 40% of our kids have at least one cavity and require follow-up care. Some have 5 or more and are considered critical cases. We see a large percentage of those. If they require follow-up care, we will set up an appointment with a partner dentist, and if they need transportation, we'll provide it. Wonderful. All of those services are provided free of charge.
Wonderful.
It's pretty neat. The bus is so cool, and it's interesting. We get kids on the bus who have never been to a dentist. We receive feedback that they're excited to receive a toothbrush because they have one at mom's and they don't have one at dad's. We had one kid say he was excited to have a toothbrush because he wouldn't have to share it with his sister. So the type of need for children who do not have a dental home and don't have access to dental care is very real, and it's right here in the Quad Cities. There are so many kids who need to go to the dentist. Their futures are very important, and for all children, obviously, but when you don't have good oral hygiene, you run the risk of heart disease, of serious dental problems in the future. There are a lot of risks involved with poor oral hygiene. So we think it's very important to make sure that kids in our community receive care. Wonderful. So we're excited to provide that service.
Oh, what a gift to the community. And you talk about oral hygiene and care, but then also confidence. I'm sure it
absolutely.
Confidence,
anxiety. Some children we've encountered are afraid to smile. How awful is that? So the positive effects of receiving that care, I mean, as you said, they carry them through their lives.
Yes. So in addition to the other amazing programming that you all do, you also have adoption services. Tell us a little more about that.
We do. Our adoption services kind of harken back to our Union Mission days. Adoption services in the Quad Cities are primarily handled through attorneys. We're one of I think the last agency, a nonprofit agency that handles adoption services. We have a program that works with birth parents. When they approach us, we make sure that they understand their options and then counsel them through the process, whether they choose to place with our agency or not. We also, when the child is born, We provide foster care services. In the state of Iowa, there are a couple waiting periods. So there's like a waiting period where the biological parents have time to make sure that the decision is proper for them. And then there's a waiting period for the adoptive family to make sure that the placement is right for them. So there's about a week there where there's a newborn that needs a place to stay. And we have some wonderful families that just love those newborns for that week.
Precious.
Oh, it's so great. And then they take really good care of them, and they're up all night, and they're just amazing people. And then those babies go with their forever families. We have a lot of success with adoption here in the Quad Cities, and it's kind of one of those programs that we all just love so much. I mean, that is always just there's a lot of happy tears in the adoption program. And what's really neat is the agency keeps records on adoptions. Obviously, we have to keep those records forever. So we'll have folks reach out to us and say, I was adopted in the 1960s. Can you tell me about my adoption? And we're able to share that information with them. It's kind of wonderful to look back at those old stories when they ask for them.
Yeah, how special.
Very.
So all of these amazing programs, adoption services, you all also have a therapy program and other things. But how can viewers get more information?
They can visit our website. It's Bethany-QC.org. All of our programs are detailed on the website, and they can always give us a call. Our telephone is 309-797-7700.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I'm sure you'll have people giving you a call. Yeah, now how about to close out, I know you've met so many amazing children and families, but could you tell us a story or a testimony that just stays with you?
Sure. I've had the privilege to meet a set of twins, these young men who are now in their early 20s. They participated in one of our programs for junior high boys. And they'll tell the story that they were kind of, tough guys, didn't care about school, didn't really care about anything. And after working with our educators in their program in school, they kind of got serious about their grades, and they felt like there was a gentleman in their life that they needed to be accountable to. They were living with a single mom, and so they kind of went through school and life with some challenges. And talking to them now as college graduates, they look back on those years where they were in our Boys to Men program, and they talk about how having someone who acted as a mentor and a father figure and was there for them to answer questions and make sure they were making good choices really made a positive impact on them, and they are delightful young men.
Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for sharing and for sharing the amazing programming happening through Bethany. What a gift to our community.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you, Jocelyn, and thank you for joining us on Joy in Our Town. We'll see you next time.
Hey kids, what's a great way to start your day?
Wake up early and take over the bathroom before your brother?
No! First, fruits and veggies. Second, walk to school.
Yeah, we walk the safe route to school every day, Skip.
I know, Scout. It's a great way to get some exercise.
And look, our community garden.
Yep, right in our neighborhood. So we can eat healthy.
And move more.
Made possible with funding from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Got a new TV, computer, or cell phone? Waste Commission of Scott County will properly recycle your old e-waste, so don't worry about your data and information. Not sure what items are considered e-waste? It's simple. Anything with a screen or circuit board. No appointment necessary. Just stop by our e-waste facility to drop off your items. The best part? It's free for Scott and Rock Island County residents. E-waste recycling. Good for the environment, easy for you. Not sure what to do with all those paint cans, cleaners, and other harmful items under the sink and in your garage? This material poses a health risk and is harmful to the environment, so it can't be thrown out. Go to wastecom.com and make an appointment to bring in your hazardous material. We will dispose of it properly, and here's the best part. It's free for Scott and Rock Island County residents. Proper disposal of hazardous material. Good for the environment, easy for you.
Welcome to Joy in Our Town. I'm your host, Kit Evans Ford. It's amazing having you here with us today. Today we have a very special guest, Ms. JoselynStone, Director of Development and Communications for Bethany for Children and Families. Jocelyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kit.
Absolutely. We're so excited to have you here, and we're talking about a very important topic for our community, strengthening families through counseling and therapy. So what is counseling?
Counseling is mental health treatment that is provided in order to address a behavior. So, for example, in our counseling program, particularly with children, maybe we have a child who is experiencing some social aggression issues. So they are angry about something, maybe they're not really sure what, and so when their temper flares, they use fists instead of words. So that's a child that we would counsel to replace that anger with something that doesn't cause as many problems.
Okay, all right. So is it kind of like a solution-based type thing?
Absolutely. It's very outcome-based. And the idea is to make sure that young people are given tools that they need in order to address those feelings or those actions in a positive way.
Oh, that's awesome. Because, so many times children will have, and adults, will have feelings and we don't know what to do with them.
Right.
So it sounds like counseling really helps to guide through a process so that they can turn those feelings into something more healthy for themselves.
Absolutely. Yeah. And it's done in a safe place with a person who they can trust, and they know that the things that they say will be taken in a manner that is going to be constructive.
Oh, safe spaces are so awesome. Yeah. So what is the difference between counseling and therapy?
Well, counseling and therapy are both options for people who require the assistance of an expert in mental health. So my understanding of it, and I'm not an expert, but my understanding is that counseling really focuses on behaviors and therapy focuses more on feelings and moods.
Okay.
So for me, it's kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other, but I'm sure that a therapist would probably be able to give you a lot more detail on how they differ. But for the purposes of our programming, it's making sure that people are feeling well and healthful and making choices that are good for them.
Mm-hmm. Now, why would psychotherapy, or when would psychotherapy be considered for a child?
When a child is experiencing traumatic life events, for example, our foster care program, a lot of children in that program have been removed from a home that they grew up in, have experienced an episode of abuse or neglect, or in some cases several episodes. So they're displaced, they're afraid, they're living in a place that's not familiar to them. There are a lot of issues there that counseling can help ease them through. So not every child is a foster child in our counseling and therapy programs. We have a school-based program in Davenport schools where a therapist will work with children at school. So suppose there was a child, like I said a moment ago, who is exhibiting poor social skills, maybe is angry or acting out in class. That child can, take a break from school and go talk to their therapist and work through those issues and then get back into class.
So it's really about what the child needs to be healthier.
Absolutely. And we noticed that as they go through therapy, not only do they do better in school, but their home life improves too.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I know we were talking just briefly earlier about sometimes there can be stigma related to counseling and therapy, but in reality, it can really be beneficial for children and families.
It really can. I like to, when I'm talking in the community about mental health issues and people getting treatment for mental health issues and the stigma that's involved, diabetes is a very well-known ailment. And when people go for treatment and receive medication for that ailment, we don't say, well, why don't you just pull yourself together?
Yeah.
For mental health, people need help. And they can't just pull themselves together. They need a professional who can help guide them on that path.
Now, what is the age where a child may be considered for counseling or therapy, and how long would they be involved in it?
It really depends on the child, and it depends a little bit on the program. We talked a little bit about foster care. Sometimes there are 4-year-olds who really need someone to talk with them. In our school-based therapy, it's usually elementary school and junior high age children who maybe see a therapist for a school year. Maybe they're working to get over an anxiety issue or concerns that they have at home. So it doesn't have to be, it's not a lifetime appointment. Sometimes those issues, they can give them some tools to work with and then they move on. But for some kids, it requires a little bit more time.
Okay. Okay. Now, if there's a parent that's watching and they see something in regards to their child as far as behavior or maybe even feelings where they would like to get their child some help, what resources be available for them at Bethany?
There are resources available. I would recommend that they take a look at our website or give us a call for an assessment. If it's not something that Bethany would normally handle, we always refer to our local community partners. There are so many great agencies in the community that offer help. If it's not something we can do, we probably know someone who can.
Okay, wonderful. It's good to know that there's help, there's support, and people don't have to sometimes literally suffer, without asking for help.
Yes.
Yeah, good to know, and that's a blessing. It's a blessing. Now, I know that Bethany focuses on children and families. So how do, if there's a parent that's involved, of course, oftentimes there are parents involved with the children. So what's the counseling and therapy situation like when parents are also involved with their children?
Sure. So always the parent is going to be curious and want to know what's going on with their child. So our social workers and our therapists make sure that the families are involved and informed about progress and what's going on. If they're talking with a child in a room and talking about changing behaviors, if the family doesn't know what those changes are, or how to support those changes, or how to maybe not trigger behaviors that are bad, it's not going to solve anything. We can't solve any problems in a vacuum. So we really work with the families to make sure that they're aware of the progress that we're trying to make and that they contribute to it and that they have a say.
Okay, wonderful. So how, when you talk about that progress, how is the child monitored and how are the results kind of evaluated?
Well, they usually have weekly meetings with the children, and then with the family constellation, they'll kind of interact with them as appropriate. Now, whether that's a weekly meeting or whether that's a phone call or whether that's a touch base, it really depends upon the child and the therapist or the caseworker involved.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I know you mentioned before how viewers could, that these resources are available for our viewers, but how can they get more information?
They should visit our website. There's a lot of information at Bethany-QC.org.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, what about, I know you've mentioned several different stories throughout our conversation, but what's a success story that you think about in regards to counseling and therapy?
Yeah. Well, so I'm sure you recall over the last several years, there have been a lot of violent school shootings. One of our therapists was talking with a young girl, I believe she was in 6th grade, and she had just terrible anxiety about going to school and there being a violent act. She wasn't really talking about it with her folks or with her teachers, but she was having terrible stomach aches because she was so anxious. So she was missing a lot of school. So her teacher referred her parents to Bethany, and through some help with her counselor, she talked with her therapist. The therapist was able to say to her, what are the odds of this happening? It wasn't a don't worry about this type of thing. Let's look at the facts. Let's figure out what would happen. What would you do? How would you handle this? And once she learned about it and was able to talk about her fears, she was able to cope with her anxiety and use tools to make it so that she could experience less fear and be knowledgeable about it and go back to school.
Oh, wonderful. So it sounds like the children really leave those counseling and therapy sessions with some practical tools.
They absolutely do.
Yeah, Yeah, so we've talked a little bit about everyone else. So I want to, the last few minutes just to give you the opportunity to share a little bit about you. So what got you involved with Bethany? You've been with them for how long, and what keeps you there?
I've been at Bethany for about 5 years in a couple of different roles.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you. What really keeps me there is I have the privilege of being a person who is able to talk about all of the amazing work that our social workers, our case management team do at Bethany, and seeing how they are able to positively impact lives and affect change at a grassroots level in our community just fills me with hope. And it's what propels me through my day, good days and bad days, knowing that the work that they do really does make a difference.
And the work that you do really does make a difference.
Thank you.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so I know one thing that we had mentioned before was the foster care program.
Yes.
Right, and specifically, we had talked just a little bit about the play therapy. So would you like to just mention a little bit about that?
Sure. One of the therapeutic options that we have is what's called play therapy. We have a special room where therapy sessions are taken at our agency. So when we have a child who perhaps is very small and maybe is having a hard time communicating what their feelings are, the therapist can take them into this really lovely room that's full of different toys and give them an opportunity to play at the sand table or to put some blocks together and provide just a little bit of a physical distraction during their conversation. Gives them a way to interact in a way that's really positive and safe.
Okay. All right, so last thing, if there was a child or a parent watching, and I know we communicate differently with children, but if they have some issues happening that, they may have thought, well, maybe we need some counseling, what would you say to encourage them to pick up the phone and call Bethany?
I would tell them to call. We have lots of different programs. Many programs people can self-refer, so they should let us know. They should talk to someone about what's going on and get some help. And if Bethany's not the right fit for them, they should call their church, their pastor, a member of the clergy, their friends. It's surprising when you reach out to find out how big your network really is. But they should definitely call Bethany. We can help.
Yes, you can help, but it's also a safe space.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Jocelyn, for providing a safe space for our community and all of the wonderful colleagues you have at Bethany. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
All right. And thank you for joining us on Joy in Our Town. We'll see you next time.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town brought to your home every day. So write Joy in Our Town, P.O. Box A, Santa Ana, California, 92711.